Rolling hills under a bright sun, David, a young shepherd boy, with a staff, gently guiding his sheep across the grassy meadow. David's father called him over, his voice urgent. David listened closely as his father spoke gravely. David quickly gathered bread, cheese, and other provisions into a woven basket. David began his journey, walking with purpose along a dusty path, holding the basket tightly. The Israelite camp was filled with weary, anxious soldiers. David spotted his brothers among a group of soldiers, their faces lined with fatigue and concern. David handed them food, asking about the battle situation. Goliath, a giant in armor, stood on a distant hill, his booming voice echoing across the valley. David looked up, his expression a mix of shock and awe, as he saw Goliath for the first time. David turned to the soldiers, his voice filled with disbelief. The soldiers looked away, their fear evident in their eyes. David clenched his fists, feeling anger rise within him. David made his way towards King Saul's tent. Inside the tent, King Saul sat, his face showing disbelief as young David spoke passionately to him. David insisted he could fight Goliath, his voice unwavering. Saul sighed deeply, finally agreeing to David's request. David tried on Saul's armor but found it too heavy. He removed the armor, choosing his sling and stones instead. David, holding his sling and stones, walked with calm determination towards the open battlefield. Goliath stood tall, a menacing grin on his face, pointing at the approaching David, his laughter echoing. David stared up at Goliath, unwavering, fearless. Goliath's mouth opened wide as he shouted insults, his expression arrogant and dismissive. David spoke with calm confidence, invoking the name of God. Goliath, enraged, tightened his grip on his sword, his face darkening with anger. David placed a stone in his sling, eyes sharp and steady. He swung the sling in a circular motion, building speed. The stone flew from the sling, cutting through the air. Goliath's face turned from a sneer to shock as the stone hit his forehead with force. The giant stumbled, his knees buckling under him. Goliath fell to the ground with a thunderous crash. David stood still, his face calm and resolute. The Israelite soldiers erupted in cheers of victory. King Saul watched from a distance, his face in awe. David moved carefully towards the giant's body, his breath calm and controlled, his face solemn. He picked up Goliath's sword, its weight immense in his hands. David raised the sword high, symbolizing the victory. The Philistine army fled, their faces filled with fear. Israelite soldiers, emboldened by David's victory, stood up with newfound vigor and strength. David stood amidst the battlefield, his faith stronger than ever. King Saul walked up to David, his expression a mix of pride and wonder, extending his hand. David humbly bowed his head, gave thanks to God and felt very blessed.